two experts, strategist Steve McMahon is a Democrat, and Todd Harris, of course, is a Republican. Steve, let me hear you right now about this. First of all, can we all look at this fight now? I think it's fascinating. Let's look at part of the Rick Perry new ad campaign going after Mitt Romney. Perry ads are good.
People who were consulted by the Romney administration were also being consulted by the Obama White House. What we did was look at White House visitor logs.
I haven't spent my life in politics.
I hate to lose.
I don't think I've ever hired an illegal in my life. We hired a lawn company to mow our lawn, and they had illegal immigrants who were working there. I'm running for office, for Pete's sake. I can't have illegals. You just don't have credibility, Mitt.
Well, you said this audience just now.
Of hypocrisy. There are a lot of reasons not to elect me.
And here's the other point of view. Here's Mitt Romney's campaign releasing an ad attack of its own yesterday, going after Romney. By the way, the video was later pulled at the request of CNN because much of the footage came from their network. The Romney campaign stands by the message of the ad, however, according to Talking Points. Remember, let's watch part of that ad.
He was before the social programs from the standpoint of he was for.
Do or die for him.
It's not whether or not we're going to have this policy or that policy. We don't need any plan to.
Perry really did throw up all over himself in the debate.
But the fact is, Americans understand faith.
Rick Perry plunging in the polls, rolling the dice.
He would just calm down. He seemed very agitated.
Such a benchmark so low at the last debate.
I mean, we'll wait until tomorrow and see.
And he doesn't have his economic plan yet.
All he had to do was show up and smile.
He's just a shadow of his former self.
Wow, Steve McMahon, the Perry people, the Romney people trying to defeat Perry or get him committed to an insane asylum. It looks like that ad makes him look so goofball that he shouldn't be allowed to walk the streets.
Well, I think they may be trying to do both, but what they're trying to do first, of course, is beat him in the Republican primary, and they want to make sure that they knock him out before he's able to get back up off the mat. He's had three really bad weeks, a number of really bad debates, and he's hemorrhaging support right now, and they want to knock him out because if he gets back up off the mat and he's able to start stringing some victories together, he may suddenly look strong again.
Okay, I didn't think we'd go this way, but let's go this way. Todd Harris, is Perry getting beat up so much, it's really, he's not in the race. He's down to single digits in like South Carolina. I think he's down to 6 down there. This was the guy that was the powerhouse. These debates are killing him.
There's no question they're having a significant impact, and they're taking a toll. I always admonish reporters never to pick winners and losers when you're still months away from voting, but there's no question that this is Romney's to lose. He is out front. Yes, the race has taken on a increasingly negative tone, certainly far more negative than it has been, but it's going to get even more negative because primary fights on both sides, Republican and Democrat, ultimately these are family feuds, and family fights are always nastier and more personal even than Republicans fighting Democrats.
Let's talk about something that has nothing to do with party. It has to do with religion and whether religion should be off base or not. Steve McMahon, my friend, is it better for a candidate who has a religious difference, say he's from a minority religion like Mormonism, to have that dust up early like now, way before a general election, if you're going to be the nominee, get it over with, fight it out with crazy ministers that shouldn't be talking, and assume that by the time it gets to next November, the voters have sort of hashed out in their head and have decided it's not really important? Would you rather have that, or would you rather it hit and flash in next October?
You know, in a political campaign, what you want to do is you want to get all the bad news out early, if there's going to be bad news that comes out anyway, and you want to kind of try to get it baked into the campaign well before the decision point. And I think from Mitt Romney's perspective right now, and even from Governor Perry, if he's able to get through this, having this sort of crazy preacher and the Mormonism discussed openly and sort of baked into the value of the stock, if you will, is something that will benefit them later, assuming that when one of them is in the general election.
Todd, you agree with that? It's better to get the crap over with now, because this attack on his religion there's no way to defend it, no way to attack it. It just is. It seems like the voters just got to make up his mind or her mind about it and say, is it matter, doesn't it matter?
Yeah, I certainly agree with one caveat, which is this. When you're talking to voters in a primary, you're talking to a very specific universe of people, and it is really only that universe of voter that is paying close close attention.
Okay.
So even with all this happening now, my guess is if Romney is our nominee in the general election, he's going to have to expand this conversation to a whole lot of people that weren't paying attention earlier.
But
even
the
if he deals
Reverend
with, yeah, go ahead.
The Reverend Wright flare-up happened in the primary. People were paying attention to the Democratic Party, but others heard about it, and I think it made it, you know, John McCain did the principled thing and didn't raise it in the general, but I think it would have not been that effective in the general anyway.
Okay, here's Herman Cain on the issue of taxes, something we should talk about a lot. Here he is being cheered for standing by a previous comment he made that protesters should stop blaming Wall Street and the big banks about being poor and get out and get a job. Let's watch. This is an amazing statement.
2 weeks ago, you said, don't blame Wall Street, don't blame the big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself. That was 2 weeks ago. The movement has grown. Do you still say that?
Yes, I do still say that. And here's why. I still stand by my statement, and here's why. They might be frustrated with Wall Street and the bankers, but they're directing their anger at the wrong place. They ought to be over in front of the White House taking out that frustration.
Let's deal with the first part of that. Are the people unemployed? It's their fault? Todd, is that a good political argument for any politician? Blame the unemployed guy and woman for being unemployed.
Well, I think it is a good argument, especially in the context of a Republican Party, to talk about self-reliance.
Yeah.
But if, you know, look, if someone is unemployed, I don't think that any voter really cares who's to blame and who's not. The problem is, what do we need to do in this country to create jobs? And as long as Republicans
well, he says blame the unemployed. That's what you do. Get off your butt. Go get a job. That's what he's saying.
I understand what he said, and it's a great applause line, but ultimately in terms of a Republican winning in November, what the party needs to be focused on is creating jobs. And, you know, all of the stuff about who's to blame, ultimately it's irrelevant.
That's a nice answer. Well, you know, you're great, Todd, but it seems like your party doesn't like people on death row. Execute the guys. Let's get it over and have some celebrations. You know, you want to let the guy die on the gurney who's comatose. If a guy's a gay soldier, to hell with him. Do you guys have sympathy for anybody, even a person who just got fired? You feel sorry for any? Is it okay to be a compassionate conservative anymore?
Chris. Very, very wealthy people, they feel sorry for, the Republicans. And they think if you make $1 billion, yes, $1 billion with a B, dollars a year, that you need a big tax cut. And if you don't, then you need a flat tax that is a regressive tax that will cause middle-class Americans to pay more.
Okay, here it is. For you, Todd, Rick Perry previewed his own economic plan, which he'll unveil next week, he says. It calls for a flat tax. In other words, the same percentage for everybody to pay in taxes, no matter if you make $1 billion or you make $100,000 a year, you make $10,000 a year. Same percentage. Everybody pays the same percentage. Let's listen to him explain already.
It starts with scraping. Excuse me, we might want to scrape it too, but it's going to scrapping the 3 million words of the current tax code, starting over with something simpler, a flat tax. I want to make the tax code so simple that even Timothy Geithner can file his taxes on time.
Well, I guess he's got his notes in his pocket there that are too complicated for him. But anyway, Todd Harris, is this a smart move to say you want, say, a 15% or 20% tax for everybody, no matter how much they make? I'm not a progressive tax. Is that smart?
It might be smart primary politics. I don't think ultimately in a general election or certainly in the White House, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And one of the reasons is because a lot of Republicans, not even a majority of Republicans, agree with a single one-rate tax system. Now, most Republicans agree that our tax system needs to be simpler and flatter than it currently is. But having one rate, not even all Republicans are going to get on board with that.
By the way, you can have a simple tax system with different rates. This idea, it has to be this. I mean, people have brains. If you say, okay, you make $50,000, you pay a certain percentage. If you make $100,000, you pay a different percentage. People can handle that. The complications in the tax system are not the rates. The complications are all, Steve, pick it up here, the loopholes to protect interests.
No, that's exactly right. Everybody wants to get rid of the 9 million word tax code, and everybody wants to get rid of the special interest tax breaks and all the things that the politicians attack. But what America is based on on is a sense of fundamental fairness, and the tax code reflects that when it's progressive. If you make a little more, then you have probably made a little more because you live in America and you can afford to pay a little more, and it's fair and reasonable to ask you to do that. What the Republicans want to do is basically undo that and have the hedge fund manager pay a lower percentage than his secretary, the Warren Buffett conversation. But they also want everybody who makes a lot of money to pay the same rate as people who don't make very much money at all, and that's fundamentally